you consider yourself normal, then this is not the show for you. Please go somewhere else. This is WYRD. If it's getting weird, it's got to be the Weird Mountain Gals show. You're listening to Byron and Alicia, the Weird Mountain Gals.
Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. That's all I'm doing.
Yep, let's get to it.
Y'all, we were right in the middle of the pre-show, and we just really got talking. And Alicia said, "Stop it! Stop it! We're to start recording right now." So we're all fat and sassy here, and here we go. Well, I was in the middle of some long-winded conversation, like I usually am, and I was saying that please don't shoot me for this because I can't help it. But there are two things I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, I'll eat them. And I'll eat them happily. And if you make the best in the world and you invite me over and say, here, have some of this, I'm going to eat it because I don't have objections to it. But it's just not something I ever think about cooking for myself. And one of them is barbecue. We were talking about barbecue places locally. And I mean, I like barbecue. I like it fine, you know. If I have my choice of a bunch of restaurants, the barbecue place is not going to be the highest one on the list. And part of the reason for that is because my mother made amazing barbecue, and there's not a recipe for it. And I never hung around to see her make it, so I don't have any idea what was in it. But it was what the standard was for me for barbecue. And so other barbecues, I try them and I go, it's all right. I mean, it's fine. And then I dive into the hush puppies because that's always my favorite. And the other thing is everybody right now is making big pots of chili. Oh, it's chili weather. I've been waiting on this. Oh, boy, I can't wait. And, I mean, I like chili. And I like all the components of chili. But I don't know. I mean, chili's fine, but I don't ever make chili, to be honest.
I don't think I've ever...
In my whole life, I don't even think I've ever made a pot of chili.
What is happening to me? Someone turn me off. I think I'm blowing a fuse.
Wow, that's amazing.
I know. I've opened a can of chili. If somebody wanted chili, like, you know, if Joe wanted some chili, I'll open up a can of decent chili, but I don't make chili. Isn't that weird? I'm weird.
It's not standard, let's say, that for a cooking person around here. Most of them do tend to make chili. And you like soup, and you tend to like things that will simmer and kind of mix and taste together and stuff. So, yeah, it's a little surprising.
And I love beans. Oh, my gosh, I love beans.
And you love Mexican food.
I do, and I love spicy food, and I love beef, because, you know, a lot of chili has beef in it. I love that. Yeah. So I don't know what it is about it. I don't think I have any trauma associated with chili.
It must be the cumin.
I can remember.
You think it's the cumin?
Oh, no, I love cumin.
Okay.
And here's the funny thing. I like chili on my hamburger. I like what they call a Carolina burger that's got chili and onions and all that stuff. It's got all that hot dog stuff on it. Yep.
Neighbors Drive-In. We got to try it again.
We do.
See if it's open. That's where the Carolina burger is.
I love that.
Yeah, my daddy used to eat those. And we were talking about Dad because we were talking about the barbecue places. And I just realized it's almost his birthday. His birthday's a week away. And he loved that barbecue place. So we're talking about the one down on Patton Avenue in Asheville that doesn't exist anymore. You know,
it used to be Barbecue Inn.
Yep.
And it had a little clock. You remember it always had the little clock up at the door.
It did. And I love the staff. They were like family. Is when you walked, for me, when I walked in the door, they just felt familiar. There was no having to get to know them. You just kind of knew them when you walked in the door. And I liked that about that place. And Dad liked that they would serve family style.
Yeah.
So they would sit down and order the meal, and it would feed everybody. And he just really liked that for some reason. So, and they were just picky about barbecue, and they would just go. They went everywhere to try barbecue. So I think that was
now say it like you said it in the pre-show.
They used it as an excuse to go road tripping. I think that's a noble reason to road trip too.
Oh, I think so too.
I road tripped one time on a coffee quest, and I did another, and ended up at a monastery outside of Commerce, Georgia.
Oh my Lord!
Having coffee that they roasted there at the monastery, and it was the best. I love going on road trips like that for some weird reason. You and I are going to we'll have to hunt for the best slaw burger and the best Carolina burger.
Oh, golly. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, I think it will be. I just have a good feeling about this year, don't you?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm still doing work from last year. I'm still catching up on stuff that didn't get done.
Well, I got a list
as long as my arm of just tedious things that have to be done. They have to be
to finish things up. Yeah, no, I agree, and I've got mine too. I've got some stuff that I've got to be working on this week, but because I want to get them finalized and finished and all of that stuff. But I figured this way. I might as well have a good feeling about this coming year, because the last few years I didn't. And I'm sorry, but that's the way my life was kind of colored disappointed.
Oh.
So I'm just gonna not really, it could be a lot worse, but what I'm saying is I normally have this kind of Pollyanna rose-colored glasses existence. And you know what? I'm not sure that there's anything wrong with that, as long as I still walk in the real world. I might as well be a little bit optimistic every now and then.
Heck, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to hit it every now and then. So that optimism is something that COVID almost robbed me of it. Was the optimism. And
you had a particularly hard COVID.
Well,
I think.
I don't know. COVID is such a weird taker and giver at the same time. There's this thing about COVID that I don't know that many people acknowledge it, but it kind of came out in a conversation I was having the other day. We were talking about folks who were griping about the work environment and the fact that nobody wants to work. So there's two distinct sides on that. There's the opinion that people are lazy and they don't want to work and they want to be given everything. They got their hand out all the time. That's one side. And then there's the side that says, well, maybe COVID forced everybody to reevaluate their priorities. And maybe, just maybe, they decided that they wanted to be paid a living wage. Notice I didn't say what they were worth, because that kind of seems far-fetched that it would ever happen. But I think people had gotten to this point of going, well, why should I put myself in danger and my family in danger, the people I'm living with in danger, going to work for a job that doesn't pay me enough to live during a pandemic? And then they found a way to live in spite of it and decided not to go back. And so there's the other side of it. And then there's my side of it, which says, well, it's probably a little bit of both. But don't we remember this conversation that we were having in the late 70s about the baby boomer generation and what was going to happen when they started getting close to retirement age?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, this was inevitable. Whether COVID would have happened or not. This crunch in employees would have happened anyway. Might have been 2 or 3 years later. But go look at the population curve. So that's where I'm at with it. It's like, I don't trust any news outlet anymore. I don't hardly trust anything except a conglomeration of information. You see,
I'm there with you because it just seems like everybody has got an agenda, and I just want to have the facts as best I can get them, and then I'll decide what I think about that. You don't have to drive that bus for me.
Yeah, me too. I think that is another reason me and you get along. Because honestly, I could give a crow about other people's opinions for the most part. I just, if what I say bothers them, they are free to not listen. And
absolutely scroll on,
or engage me in a conversation if they want to, if I'm up for it. So, but anyway, I'm feeling feisty. Can you tell?
Yeah, I think you're feeling better, and that makes you feisty.
It's all the prednisone.
Is it?
It'll make you feisty. That's what I'm.
Now you're having roid rage.
Yeah.
Isn't prednisone a steroid?
It is. Yes.
Oh, there you go. You're roiding.
I'm roiding. I guess it's a good thing I'm not on the interstate, huh?
My
little granny station wagon.
Right, one of these days. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting to me that. So I got sick a week ago, and for the first time in my life, I had trouble finding medical help. First time in my life. That's it. Huh. I called up my what? See, that's how lucky I've been. But call up my regular doctor, and they didn't have enough staff to see anybody that day. Told me to go to urgent care. I go to urgent care. They're closed. The first one I go to is closed because no water. Because y'all, if you don't live in Asheville, you don't know it. But back on weekends, a lot of South Asheville and some other parts of Buncombe County went without water because of the freezing that happened on Christmas weekend.
And because we spent years ignoring our infrastructure. Yeah, but that's a whole nother conversation.
It's also kind of assumed at this point that we've ignored it. And so we had some places closed because of that. And I ended up going to like 7 places, no joke, and couldn't get looked at by any of them. And then, I realized that there's this thing called telehealth. And you can call this number, and they can set up an account for you in about 5 minutes. And it worked with my insurance, and it cost $10, which is less than it cost me to walk in and get a doctor's appointment somewhere.
Well, golly, I didn't know it was that easy. I've had telehealth visits with my existing medical people. Yeah, but I don't know. You could just sign up and get one.
It actually was listed on my insurance card, and I hadn't paid any attention to it. And for some reason, I got that insurance card out. I think it was to check. Excuse me for the noise. To check and see what my deductible would be if I walked in at the ER, and I saw this number that said Teledoc right on the insurance card, and I called them up. And I was like, oh, okay. And it cost $10. 20 minutes later, I had a prescription at the pharmacy for my lung ailment, my RSV.
My goodness. That's super fast.
It was, so how do you feel about that? I mean, it's good, isn't it? Even though it's technology?
Well, I mean, I'm not anti-technology necessarily, but yeah, I think it is good because healthcare in this country is so messed up.
Oh God, you're not kidding.
And if it's something that you can get that kind of diagnosis for by talking to somebody on a video chat, and you can get your medicine in half an hour, that's pretty darn amazing. I think.
I was really impressed. Had I not been so sick, I would have been more impressed. But I was pretty impressed.
My thing is that I like I pay my credit card bill in person, and I like to go to the same grocery store and the same bank, that stuff, because I love to interact with people that have been there. And so they know my name and I know who they are and that kind of stuff. But that is going the way of the dodo.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I love my doctor and I love to see I don't love to see my doctor, but it's never scary. I always feel like he's got my very best interest at heart, even when he's nagging me to get more exercise. Well, but so I wouldn't want to go, from pillar to post all the time, but I think that's the way it's going to be. Especially for people like us,
Yeah, well, I'm very guilty of not expecting much from my doctors, and I rarely am disappointed. But listen, I'm not really criticizing the doctors as much as the system that they're stuck in. I think most folks in the United States who go into medicine have got good intentions, and but no doctor can be held to the standard that they are being held to every single day and be able to do their best job for their patients. They're forced to see too many patients, and they do it all the time. And so they can't, there's no way that my doctor, even though he's been my doctor now for 20 some years, there's no way that he remembers little details about me. And if he does, it's going to be sporadically. I can't expect him to either. And so I'm guilty of being one of those people who walks in the door with already having an idea in mind of what might be going on. And I go in and ask for the tests. Right then I say, well, this is what I've got, and can you order me such and such a test? And they've just gotten used to it. And I don't know. I'm not apologizing for it. As a matter of fact, that was one of my thoughts about my end of the year roundup, my personal work that I'm doing. I don't do a lot of public work anymore, even though I wouldn't mind it. But, I'm not out in public that much anymore. But when I do have a soapbox, I really do feel like my soapbox this year is going to be, critical thinking will save your life. Use your own brain.
Golly, what a shocking notion. Maybe you ought to, can you just do a group text message up to the House of Representatives about that? How about some critical thinking, y'all?
They've got some stuff on their mind today, I imagine.
I'm telling you, I'm waiting for one of them on one side or the other of that Republican mess to come up with a folding chair, like old timey wrestling,
and just take the folding chair and just whap up against it.
Remember that in old wrestling stuff? Wrestling.
What was that called when they would take the folding chair? And
God, I don't know.
Was that a SmackDown?
Well, SmackDown could happen in a lot of ways. Okay. I don't know. You and I, neither one of us know enough about wrestling, I think, to probably comment.
I went to a wrestling match one time.
I'm sure you did. I've done so myself. And in fact, I have a signed photograph from my good friend Michael Hyatt, who may or may not be listening to this. And it is a framed photograph of Chief Wahoo McDaniel.
Nuh-uh.
That is also signed.
Wow.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Uh-huh.
That's the smooth.
It is. That is the shizzle. That is indeed. That's amazing. I don't know. That's one of those things. I had a long conversation with a friend of mine about some of the good things that are in Appalachian culture and some of the terrible things. Because, the level of misogyny and alcoholism and drug use and xenophobia. And I was just saying to her, I sing the praises of this region all the time, that there's so much good here, but I'm not blind to all the rest of it. I'm not.
There's some, I'm not sure what the word is, raw maybe. There's some things that are real close elements of, and you're right. This is a tough part to hear, but the beauty to me is where I put my eyes and my focus as much as I can. on when you're talking about this region, but there's some deeply instilled values here that are up.
Yep. They are.
And,
they are.
And, the whole, and I could just go into detail and just do a whole show bitching about that stuff. It's the truth.
We'll do that along about February. How would that be?
That sounds fun to me.
Because what we need to talk about today is it's New Year's and what all things you're supposed to have done or be doing to make sure you got a happy, lucky New Year.
Happy, lucky, prosperous,
all
and healthy.
All of that.
Eating your greens and your beans and your pork.
Yep. What'd you have for your dinner on New Year's Day?
We had a little bit of baked ham and some very good turnip greens and some cornbread and some black-eyed peas. And what did you have?
Well, almost the same thing, of course.
What kind of? You probably had. Didn't you have some streaked meat or something?
I fried up streaked meat to be crackling in the cornbread.
Okay.
And I did that the day before and then chopped it up good.
Yeah.
And we had brought some ham back with us from Christmas up in the high country. And I stuck that in the freezer because we didn't want to have a whole lot of, I didn't want to do a pork roast and have that lingering. So we had just enough ham to make us feel like we had our rich, fat meat product.
Yes.
And then I did collard greens because I love them and black-eyed peas. And it was funny. I was going through the grocery store the Wednesday before the day, and I hadn't even made a list because that's how loony I am right now. I hadn't even made a list, and I was going through going, well, I'm pretty sure I got applesauce. I canned applesauce. There's plenty of that. Let's see. I think I got some black-eyed peas. It's probably enough black-eyed peas. So I had everything I needed for New Year's Day, except for the streaked meat and the collard greens. So I got both of those, and it was pretty easy this year, actually, and delicious. It's always a delicious meal.
Yes, it was, and we did. It's called toast to toast the New Year with. And it was elderberry and white tea and ginger.
Oh, that sounds like
sparkly thing. Oh, it was like a dry champagne without alcohol.
Ooh. How nice.
Good. It was really good.
And we did drink a bottle of champagne that day. We didn't do it the night before because with just two of us, I mean, it just makes you feel, I got to drink more champagne. And that is never how you should treat champagne.
No. Well, I don't know. I guess not. I guess if I was a drinking person, I probably would. That would probably be my drink. Would be champagne.
I do like it. It's it's always about joy and occasion and happiness, and that just flows into it. Anytime I have it, I'm one of those people. I've never opened a bottle of champagne, and I never shall, because I don't want to know how to do that. I want that to be this special thing that happens for me.
Oh, that's so cool.
And every time somebody opens a bottle of champagne, I applaud. Yay, champagne!
That's awesome. My special thing for me that I do just for myself is if you ever hear that I've cooked myself breakfast, then and I was telling my friend this today, then that means that I've taken the time to cook myself breakfast, because my breakfast of choice takes a little while to do if you do it right. And so if I've taken the time to cook myself breakfast, then I have started my day out right. The one thing that I'm terrible at is taking care of myself correctly. It's like I might focus on my body one time. Here's a month that goes by where I make sure and I get as much water as I should, or whatever. But I might ignore this other aspect of it. And I'm really guilty of letting my schedule be too crowded.
Oh, Lordy, me too.
And I feel like an act of self-care for me is to spend time off the phone and just alone doing something for myself.
In the quiet or listening to some music. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, just something. It could be, go out and hunt for some mushrooms, or it can be when I'm in this place right here where it's dead of winter and I'm not feeling good. Okay, I feel good enough to make myself some breakfast. I'm going to do something for myself, read a book or something.
Lovely. I love that.
I'm trying because I'm of the age where my position in life could be called caretaker now. I'm not matriarch. Yes. I'm not a matriarch, and I don't want to be. No. But I'm caretaker now, and so that, because I'm also female, there are a lot of jobs that I have that are not called jobs.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a busy woman, but you also have, your work doesn't go away just because you're busy. You still have all these things that you are responsible for. And so same for me. And I'm just really guilty of not taking care of myself sometimes. So that is over this year. Alicia,
good for you. Good for you.
Well, I know there are going to be times when my schedule will tell me what to do. But I'm going to try and not make them all the time.
That's funny.
I'm going to try. And I've been thinking about you all morning because you've got a trip coming up. You're going to Scotland, aren't you?
Yeah, not anytime soon, thank God.
Oh, I thought you were going like in 3 or 4 weeks.
No, middle of March.
Oh, okay. Well, now that's not that far away, Miss Byron.
No, it's plenty far away for all that's got to get done between now and then. Yeah, I'm going with my one of my editors and a woman who's a good friend, Annie. Yeah. And we're going to go to Edinburgh for it's not quite 2 weeks, but right on 2 weeks. Yeah. And I'm going to get to visit friends in Scotland that I've not seen since 2016, because I've not been back since then. Wow. And then going to see some other stuff. I mean, March is not the optimal time to be in Scotland. March is a good time to be in Ireland usually, but in Scotland it's going to be cold and wet probably. Uh-huh. But that's okay. That's all right. I'm going to be happier in cold and wet than I would be in hot and muggy. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So is there a reason that you're going in March?
Because that was the month that was clear in my festival calendar.
Ah, gotcha.
That was the latest month. So that felt good. I'm celebrating. Pardon?
Your festivals are starting in April, huh?
Well, my festivals and conferences are starting next week, but those are virtual.
Okay.
I will be remote for those, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly 5 things that are remote between now and going to Scotland. And then when I get back from Scotland, the following week after that, I'm heading to Florida for the first in-person festival of the year, and it's pretty relentless from there on out.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you the one question while I can still remember it. It was about chili. And it was, do you ever eat white chili?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you like that any better?
Well, I'm indifferent to it.
Okay.
Isn't that weird?
It's surprising is what it is. Because you can make a white chili, which that's really the most complicated meal that I make, is I make a white bean chicken chili, which I've put the recipe up before, and I pair it with jalapeno cornbread. And then with a little bit of
very yummy.
Yeah, with a little something on the top of it, like sour cream to calm it down if you need that.
Yeah.
And I love that meal, and I love it so much.
Delicious. It sounds delicious.
Well, it's almost like, and I always go to Coates Produce down there at the farmer's market.
Oh, I love the Coates family.
I do too.
They're so nice. And that's another one of those. We have lived in this area for so long because the coats they don't know my name at all. But when they see me, they know me because I go there all the time. That's where I start out. When I go to the farmer's market, I always start with the coats.
I do too.
And my dad knew the older man who I don't even think is there anymore. So, yeah, I've always loved to do that. And it's just the funny thing about being in a place for so long is lots of things are familiar and that there's a comfort in that, I think.
There is. And, with the coats anyway, I know that what I'm going to get. And it's consistently good, and and it makes me feel good to help to spend my money there with them because they're small business and family run and all of that. But they did tell me this last time because I went to go get the cornbread mix that I get, and it was not there. And I said, okay. So the lady told me that their grist mill was torn up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I don't know how much that costs to replace, and I don't know if replacing it is in the future. They may have already replaced it. I don't know.
Yeah. Boy, we should look for a GoFundMe for that because, whew.
Yeah, that stuff's expensive, I'll bet you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm sure it is, and very specialized equipment.
So that was my extra question there was about the white bean chicken chili.
Yeah, I mean, I like it okay. It's just weird. I can't explain it. Y'all know how weird I am. I mean, I like it. That's the thing. I like everything in regular chili. I love the beans. I love the tomatoes. I love the meat. I love the flavor, the seasoning, all that stuff. But I just
put it all together and
it's pot of chili. But if I'm thinking about what I'm going to cook in the coming week, like we go to the grocery store Wednesday morning. So Tuesday after I get off work, I start thinking about what we're going to eat next week. And I look in the freezer and I look in the refrigerator. And then I start thinking about what it is I'm going to cook. And you know what never comes up is chili. It just never does. And I guess if my husband loved chili, I'd make chili. But he doesn't seem to care one way or the other. So.
Do you have a favorite meal?
I do. And it's going to sound weird I got two favorite meals. My favorite thing to just cook up if I want the house to smell good and I'm hungry is onions, garlic, peppers, and whatever, cabbage, all sauteed together with a lot of black pepper ground up in it. I love that. I could eat that all day long. I eat my weight in that. But another thing that I love to do is it's kind of an Asian sort of food. I love to cook up firm tofu so that it's crispy on all the sides, and then toss it with peanut butter and mix it like a peanut butter sauce, and then toss in steamed broccoli. Yeah, it's good. And sometimes I chop up onion in that too.
Now, do you put it in a wok?
Well, I have a wok, but I tend to just use my big cast iron pan because it's out. I'd have to get the wok out. I don't use that enough to have it where it's easy to get to.
There you go. Well, that sounds good.
So I love that. But there's lots of things I love to cook. And when I have people over the house and we're not having like a dinner thing, everybody I know loves if I just get a brie and I put a dollop of some kind of jam on the top of it and I stick it in the oven until it gets soft. And I swear people would just sit here with a spoon and eat that. They don't even need a cracker or nothing. It's just like, here comes the brie. Oh, this is going to be good.
I like it. I like that with sliced apples.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's definitely good. But hey, we had something at Christmas time. Maybe then. I don't remember when exactly. Yeah, that's when it was. I grew up that, y'all, gonna laugh, and that's okay. I grew up that at Thanksgiving or Christmas or both, you got these crackers called chicken and a biscuit, or that's what my immediate family had. But my grandmother always got these crackers called sociables. And they have, some kind of vegetable flavor in them or whatever. Yes. And chicken and the biscuits from the same company, but that has like chicken flavor in it. So that was the idea of something fancy. Then you made canapes with that. And you put a little bit of that squeezed cheese, cheese in a can, and maybe a slice of olive on top of it.
Well, the olive was if you were entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you didn't do any of this if you weren't entertaining, really.
I watched my dad devour chicken and a biscuit or chicken and a whatever, chicken and a biscuit and canned cheese whiz or whatever. And when we watch football sometimes.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, because that'd be kind of a football food. So I decided I didn't want to get chicken and a biscuit because, well, I mean, my tastes have changed a little bit. But I got the Sociables crackers this year, and darn if they weren't so good. And I paired them up with some fairly expensive and good cheeses. So they got to graduate from cheese in a can to a decent Havarti. But I tell you, they stand the test of time, those crackers. They feel very, very good.
They do. I remember them. It's been years since I've had one of those. I got for my brother this year for Christmas. We are all old enough to where we don't need stuff. We're so lucky. We don't really need stuff. And so I don't feel too bad if I get him some food item, and he's a bit of a food. So I was thinking, well, okay, I want to get him something from Hickory Farms. Because what is it? What is that term? Charcuterie. It's charcuterie. Well, we just call that, game day food, charcuterie. And so I went to Swiss Colony. Right. I'm SwissColony.com. Remember when it used to come in a magazine?
Still does.
Does it? Okay. I'd rather see it in the magazine, honestly.
I know it looks so delicious in there.
It does until you actually order one and you realize that stuff is miniature.
Yes.
Right. I was like, what? I paid $50 for what?
Yeah.
And so this year I kind of had a vague idea that I wanted to get my brother some charcuterie. And I was hoping that I could find a Hickory Farms store. And guess what? There are none of those around anymore.
There's not even a kiosk in the mall anymore?
I honestly didn't go to the mall, but I didn't see one online. The closest one I saw online was in Greenville, and it was in the mall there. So I don't know. Anyway, somehow I ended up at the Euro Market in West Asheville.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, for half the price, I got some of the best quality little sausages and cheeses and mustards, and I'm that girl. And as I was looking, I look over there and it was just like, whoa! And there was a box of these little cookies, tiny little cookies shaped exactly like mushrooms.
Oh,
little mushroom cookies. And then I look across the aisle and there's a can of instant soup. And it's got, one of those microwavable things that you pull it off and put some water in. And it's got chanterelles, black trumpets, and morels, and shiitake mushrooms on the outside of it. I'm like, am I in heaven? And then over here is some chocolate, very good quality chocolate.
Now, is that the one that's near Aldi on Patton?
Yeah. Sure is. Right beside it. And, of course, I love that place. And now it used to be a few doors down from it, but I have such good memories of that place. They've got a huge candy section, which, of course, somebody like me should never be around a candy section. But back then was a different story. And I remember going there as an adult not too many years ago. and just playing like a kid, because getting into the penny candy section is what it felt like, being a kid again. It's like, okay, I'm going to go get this. And I was just putting this candy in the bag and cutting up with my friend. And it was just so much fun. And I really like the way the other countries mix their flavors a little bit differently. In other words, do you ever go to that, to Gypsy Cab or Gypsy Cafe, I guess?
Gypsy Queen?
Gypsy Queen.
Yeah, the food there is wonderful. She knows what she's doing, that woman.
She does. Well, remember, she started out as a food truck.
Yep.
And she was a food truck, and then she started text messaging her food for the day and where she was going to be at. And she got really popular and deserved to be. But you go in there and a little dessert will do you, a little tiny dessert, because it'll be this little thing, but it'll be flavored with rose water.
And pistachios and and
it's like I love eating that way for good quality and the interesting taste, and
Well, and that little place, I don't want to discourage people by saying it's a hole in the wall, but it's not fancy. And you go in there and that place is crowded almost all the time because the food is so darn good.
That's right.
So unlike some places in this town, let me just say very clearly, that you go to and you spend high dollar for mediocre food. You go in there and it ain't cheap, but it's very affordable. And the food is it's extraordinarily good.
It's very good food. It may not be the healthiest, but it's not bad for you, comparatively speaking. I mean, it's better for you than anything on the menu at some of these places. I'm not going to say
at most places. That's exactly right.
But
no, it's good. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, and we would go down there.
I know you'll put a link on it when we post it on Facebook.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good, so good.
I do support them. Well, and honestly, I don't think it's that expensive, because generally, if I go with a friend, then we'll go and we'll get we'll get the shawarma, and then we'll get an order of the fries, and and then we split it, and it's still a big damn meal.
It is. I mean, the quantity and the quality of food is very good there.
It really, really is. And we got several places like that around. We're so lucky. And we've got some places that are just interesting. And then we've got some that are trendy and they hit the mark without meaning to. Like, have you been to the Madness?
Yeah, a good friend of mine just loves the Madness. And I it's like chili. I'm indifferent to the Madness. It's
like
all right.
Sushi. They've got good sushi, though. That's the thing.
I've never had sushi there.
Yeah, they've got a bento box that I like. That's a combination. It's got a little tiny burger slider and a little tiny Oriental salad, and it's got it's got like a roll of sushi, and you get to pick the sushi and stuff, and and it's got a little bitty batch of French fries, which they're good but unnecessary for me. But it's interesting to think of having burgers and sushi. But for some reason, it works really well. It really does.
Well, and there are restaurants that, like I said, my friend loves that restaurant, and it's all right. And there are restaurants that people love, and I will go to them and not love them. And there are restaurants that I love, and I'll invite friends. Oh, you got to have lunch with me at this place, and we'll get there, and they'll be like, "This was what you love so much? What's going on?" So it's fun to think about how different our tastes are about stuff. Because there was a restaurant, and I'm not going to call its name because it's done now; it's all gone. That when we did stuff at Raven and Crown at its old location, when we had guests in to do book signings and stuff, then we would end up at this restaurant. And, everybody loved it. Oh, you can get some bison. You can get this. You can get that. And I never had a meal there that that I liked. And I never had a meal there that was good. And that's just the truth of it. But the straw that broke the camel's back is that I had ordered a burger and fries and a glass of Pinot Grigio, which is a white Italian wine. And the wine came out lukewarm, and it should be ice cold. So I sipped it, and I said, "This is cold. This is hot." And the waiter said, "Well, you want me to put some ice in it?" And I said, "No. What is wrong with you? I want it cold. You can't put ice in wine. Are you high? What are y'all eating out down in that kitchen?" So, but I wasn't mean about it. It was like, this is kind of lukewarm. And she said, "I tell you what, I'll make sure it gets cold. It's cold the next time," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Thinking, well, I might order another glass and maybe that'll be ice cold. Well, then the meal comes out, and I'd ordered the burger as I am wont to do, rare, and it came out like shoe leather. It was so thoroughly cooked and dried out. And the French fries were cold. The French fries were colder than the damn wine.
And let me guess. So it was not cheap.
Oh God, no. No. And so I kept looking at my server, like, I ordered this burger this way. And I used to work in a restaurant kitchen, so I know that rather than have the customer bitch about the quality of the food, most good restaurants want the server to bring the plate back and say, "This is not as rare as my customer wants it," so that they have a chance to redeem themselves. Right. Well, this, I think, was not that kind of restaurant. So I said, "Well, it's overcooked." And she said, "Well, you said you wanted it well done." And I said, "I most certainly did not." And then I picked up a French fry, and the ones that weren't cold were just almost burnt black. They were hard as little rocks, but it was all cold. And I just gave up. Normally I would have fought tooth and nail, and I just went, this puts paid to this restaurant. I will never come back here again. And I said that at the end. She handed me the bill, and I had not eaten, and I think I ate the vegetables off the hamburger. So I ate the piece of lettuce and the tomato, whatever. That's what I ate. I didn't finish the wine. And she said, "I'm sorry, was that not to your liking?" And I said, "Yes.
What?
I believe I expressed that to you when you brought that to the table." And the thing to have done at that point would have been, if they weren't going to make a meal that I could eat, would be to say, "We are very sorry. We're going to comp you your meal." No, not at all. And in fact, they ended up overcharging me for the wine. And I just put it down to, if you know you don't like a restaurant, don't go there. Yeah. Just don't go there. Yeah. And if people invite you to go with them, then go with them and have maybe a cup of coffee or maybe a glass of wine that it's okay if it's lukewarm, or, some iced tea, whatever, but have something to be in fellowship with your friends. But don't give money to a place that you don't support, really.
I completely agree with that.
It was a good message for me. It was a good lesson for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me ask you, was that your worst ever restaurant experience?
No, because that one was pretty laid back. There wasn't a lot of stress or anything. I had a terrible experience at, I don't remember the name of it now. It was on Page Avenue, and it was like 46 Page or something was the name of the restaurant.
But that and they could have been it. Was it French?
Sort of fake French. I mean, like Asheville French. Yeah. And we had done a show downtown, and a bunch of us went up there, and they closed at 10, and we got there at 9, which is that's pushing it a little bit.
Not really.
It shouldn't. That's it shouldn't be. If it had been a Mexican restaurant, it wouldn't have been a problem, but it wasn't. So we go in, and the server anytime we would ask for something, he'd go, "Oh, that's been put away already." Well, so I ordered a salad, and he said, "Oh, the salad is behind all the other stuff we've already put away." And I went, "It's a salad. Can't you just dig out some lettuce and put some ranch dressing on it?" Salad. So that was very embarrassing and uncomfortable. That happened in probably the 80s, when I was still young enough to not know how to behave and to ask for the manager and all that. But then I was at 2 different restaurants downtown. One where I came in with like an 8 top, and I reserved it in advance. 8 people. One more person joined our party. And so I went up to the host or the hostess, I don't remember now. And I said, "We are here for this 8 top, but I need to add a person to it." And they said, "Well, you can't do that."
What?
And I said, "Well, what?" And they said, "Well, we don't do that. We don't add people once the reservation's been made." And I said, "Oh, can't we just kind of squeeze together, or you put the person?" And so the rest of the party was seated, and they were getting their water and all that stuff. And I was standing there explaining the extra person. But at that point, I was the extra person because everybody else was seated at the 8 top. And I said, "Oh, isn't there anything you can do? Could you put part of us at a different table?" I really was trying to be so reasonable about it. "Oh, no, absolutely not. It's just, we just don't do that." And then I got my back
don't
up.
like making money.
Yeah, and then I got my back up, and I walked over to the table, and I said, "They can't seat me because they can't seat an extra person." And they were like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, so we reserve for 8, and we have 9, and I'm 9. So y'all go ahead and eat, and I will catch up with you later." And they were like, "We're not going to eat here without you." And of course, the person who was number 9 was feeling guilty. And I said, "No, you are here. I'm number 9. So they all went, "No, hell no, we're not eating here," and got up and walked out. And so we all left. And that's a restaurant right on Pritchard Park that if I called their name, you would know exactly who they are. So that was not pleasant. And then another.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of a restaurant doing.
Yeah. And another case of another downtown restaurant that, everybody loves it. God, we love to go there. And I think I reserved a 6 top, and we had 1 extra person. And it was like, can't you just put a chair over at the end of the table? "No, we can't really do that." And I was like, this is the server is telling me we can't do that. And I said, "You can't add a chair." And the restaurant was almost empty. I said, "You can't add a chair to the end? How about you add a whole nother table?" No, we really can't do that. And then I stood up and I walked, and he had turned around and walked away towards the kitchen. And I walked after him, and I pushed him against the lintel of the door. And I said, "Right now, here, I need to see your manager." And he said, "What?" He said, "What?" And I said, "And if the manager isn't here, I need to see the show." And he just was like, "Woo." And then, of course, the manager came out and said, "Is there a problem, ma'am?" I said, "Yeah." And I was very sweet, like, "Oh, I've just messed this poor child up because we reserved for 6 and I brought 1 more person. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to make that work." And he looked at me and he looked at this guy and he said, "Well, we're going to make that work by adding a chair at the end of the table. Come on over. We'll do that right now." And I just looked at the server like, "See, old women you should not fuck with, because once we get our back up, it's not going to be pleasant for anybody." And so it was all very happy after that. And I'm sure that server cussed me to the moon and back. But yeah, so those are probably my worst restaurant experiences. I mostly have really good experiences at restaurants.
Yeah, me too. Well, and interesting to me, as much as you travel, the ones that stood out in your mind are all local. And aren't we supposed to be foodtopia here?
Well, but evidently the new generation of people who eat don't really care about that.
They don't require manners?
No, I don't think anybody really. Have you been on TikTok at all? No. I don't think they really require manners at all anymore. And let me also reference again, the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C.
I'm sorry.
Manners? Are you crazy? Manners?
Yeah, I know. What I said manners, but you know what I actually meant was hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I meant. If you're a restaurant, I don't care how freaking exclusive you are. And yes, I know that these places require a certain amount of time to make each meal, but something like you're describing is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
It's the exact opposite of what you should be doing.
Exactly.
If you don't have any better sense than that, if you're really exhibiting such bad judgment that you're going to do something like that, I don't want to eat with you because I don't know what else you're doing back in the kitchen.
Breaking bread with you is not going to be a good thing with me. Yeah. No, you're right. It is hospitality. And I also understand that servers are, especially if they're new, are bound by, these are the rules. I was told the rules and these are the rules and I can't do that. But in at least one of those instances, I was talking to the hostess, whatever. I can't remember who that was, about adding a person. And that person can know the rules, but surely they know when you can, I don't know, wiggle the rules around a little bit. I don't know. But none of them were handled very well.
No, it doesn't sound like it. And it's also not like, I've got this relative who literally will not go anywhere without special ordering. And they do that on purpose because they say that way they know it's been made fresh. Well, okay, I get it. All right.
Yeah, some people do that.
Yeah, but I sort of get it. But they get in there and they nitpick the meal to death. And I tend to not do that. Okay. I usually don't nitpick the meal to death, but I do occasionally special order something. But I've never seen you be picky. Although I'm looking forward to having a few more chances to find out. I just realized me and you, we are overdue to go check out Joyce Kilmer. We are overdue for several different things.
Yeah, Joyce Kilmer is high on my list right now.
I know it is. You said it the other day, and I started thinking about it. You know what? We need to be out there right now looking at fiddleheads, looking for any kind of signs of bloodroot at all. Mm-hmm. I mean, because if for no other reason than to get ready for the weather coming up and to get closer to the land again. It's like I got to remember where I'm from sometimes.
Yes. It was really good last Thursday. I went with my friend Amanda for my for my present. She gave me a day, and she picked me up at the house, and we went up 1923 and went to Wilson Creek. We went to all kinds of places I've just not been to in a long time, or if ever. And we had pizza for lunch, and we, played with the dog. It was just one of those really good days that reminded me of all that I miss in my traveling because I'm not traveling here. Yeah. So I think, I can be home for a little while, and I don't immediately think, I think I'd like to go to Clay County and see what's going on out there. I just don't do that. Or even Madison County, even the counties that are close by. I just go, at least I'm not traveling right now. And I'm missing a lot. Yeah. I am missing a lot.
If you hear some noise, it's because I've got the windows open because it got a little warm in here. But the wind is starting to pick up. And this, of course, is the time of day when I expect you're going to hear our family of crows. And they're getting food, by the way.
Of course they are. They're eating good.
I can't believe how big they are. So we're up to we've got a consistent family of crows, family of 3. And we've got one white cat that we see twice a week who evidently has a route.
Making the rounds.
Yeah. And so we get them on Mondays and Thursdays. And that's what I've noticed anyway. And we have one belligerent squirrel I say belligerent because the squirrel is kind of small. It's not a big giant squirrel, and these crows are giant. I'm telling you, they're chicken-sized crows. And
oh my goodness!
This little squirrel has learned that when the crows show up and they're sitting real close to here, that means there's likely to be some food that comes out fairly soon, right? So, and the squirrel's right. So the squirrel will get up there, and the squirrel will basically fight for his little bit of the food. And it's like, the squirrel, I don't know. I wouldn't be doing that if I was a squirrel, because he looks soft and meaty to me. If I was a big old hungry crow. But this little squirrel doesn't care. He's just like, hey, I like garlic bread too. You know, so I'm not really encouraging it, because squirrels, you know, squirrels don't have boundaries.
No, they do not.
And I mean, I adore watching squirrels and all that, but when you're in an urban setting, squirrels do not have boundaries. They've become very urbanized very quickly, just like bears around here. I remember in New York City, when I would be in New York City, I love to eat from food carts. That was a novel thing, you know, go get your bagel and go sit down on a park bench somewhere and eat and watch life in the city. And I remember I would just get annoyed as hell because the squirrels would not leave me alone. They would crawl up my leg if I would let them. And I just think that's rude.
I do too.
Well,
I love it.
You know, there's a whole subsection of city life that has to do with watching the wildlife. They've got a huge batch of hawks in New York City.
Oh,
hawks, yeah, because they have a never-ending supply of pigeons. Or
well, they have all those tall buildings to nest in.
You can see these live cameras if you type in the right search term, which I need to teach some of the weirdlings about Boolean search methods. But anyway, yeah, if you put in the right search terms, you can see live cameras of hawks and eagles that are nesting up on windowsills outside of apartment buildings. It's fascinating. Cool? It is. I from time to time, I go through a phase where I am the internet voyeur. I want to go look at live cameras all over the world. And Google has a feature, and you can click this little feature in their map program, and it will randomly take you to some location on the earth that they've mapped out. And you wouldn't believe some of the places that I've been able to see through a live camera. And once the camera is there, you know, it kind of drives, you can drive it up a road. You can go over, drive to the coast of whatever. Have you ever seen that feature? Isn't that something?
I think it's amazing.
Hey, thank you for spending your time with us here at Wyrd Mountain Gals. We sure do appreciate it. You know, I know time is the most important thing we have, so I promise that if you take your time to listen to us, we'll take our time to continue to be weird. Many thanks to Sunslice Records for all the help. We couldn't do it without you, Craig. Check out our social media for information, community, or a few laughs. WYRD Mountain Gals.
WYRD Radio.